it's no secret that post-secondary education is really expensive. So to talk about RESPs, I have Laura Southall joining us. And so RESPs, what does that stand for?
Registered Education Savings Plan.
Okay, tell me about it.
Okay, so it's really a tool for someone to save for a child's education. It's an investment account, similar to your TFSA or your RRSP, but it's meant only to save for your child's education account. So it doesn't have to be a parent that sets it up. It could be a grandparent or an aunt or uncle or a godparent or a neighbor or friend. They just have to have the child's SIN number and the parent's permission to set that up.
Wow. And so a child's SIN number, so you can get a SIN number when you're tiny?
Oh, Donna, you're dating yourself.
I
Now
get-
you can get one when they're newborn.
You're kidding me.
No,
Weird. I had to
you
wait
get
till I
them.
was 16.
No, I know, me too. Yeah, you get them when they're newborn, so that's what you need to set up the RESP.
Okay.
But then huge benefits to the RESP. You put money into it, and then the government gives you, it's like magic, they give you free money. So it's 20% of whatever you put in. So if you put $1,000 into that RESP account this year, they'll give you $200. It's fantastic.
Wow. Like, that's really amazing. Yes.
Yes, there are limits. They will only give you the 20% grant up to you contributing $2,500. So it's $2,500 per child per year if you wanted to max out the government grants.
So this is a whole lot better than me just opening a savings account and just putting money aside this is a whole lot better.
So much better than a savings account. But it really is just an investment account. So it could be set up in a similar fashion. It's very easy to set up. You can go to any bank, any credit union will set one up. It's good to be aware that there are private companies that offer the RESP, but they have a lot of fees. So people want to read the fine print if you are going to use a private company. But any of the banks or credit unions, you can set up an RESP. It's like setting up a bank account, except that you put money in, the government puts money in, and you don't have to fill out paperwork every month or anything like that. It just happens automatically. The government sees you put money in. So they make their contribution, you make your contribution, and then you get to invest that. So you could hold stocks in there, you could hold mutual funds, you could hold a GIC in there, and the money could grow. And you've got 18 years normally with the life of a child, so there can be really substantial growth happening in that RESP.
A whole lot more than the 1% you get on a savings account.
Yeah, if you got that, yeah.
Yeah, if you can get that. Right,
Yeah.
right. Wow, that is really quite amazing. So that potential over 18 years for that money to grow on top of it
Yeah,
is
it's huge.
Is huge.
Yeah. I've got 3 teenagers myself. I've been contributing every month. So $2,500 sounds like a lot of money. If you break it down, it's $208 a month. So I've been doing monthly contributions to the RESP every month since they were born. And now 3 of them are about to go to university like at the same time, which is a lot. But it's okay because I have the RESP. So it's a fantastic tool for saving.
You're not going to have to mortgage your house to be able to, because people do.
I know people do, and it's not a good idea.
Right.
And this has been around for a long time, but not everybody is aware of it. I would also add that if you're from a low-income family, then there are more grants available. So everybody gets the 20%, but if you're from a low-income family, then you could get up to 40%, and there's more bonds added. The government gives more to anyone from that low-income family.
So really what it's saying is that at some point your child does not have to be, so you're low income, I get it. A lot of people are, but it doesn't mean that your child has to do without a good education because your income is very limited.
No, and the money in the RESP also would not affect their ability to get student loans. So it's huge in that way as well. So this is money that's not going to affect their ability to get student loans, and they don't have to pay it back because it came out of the RESP.
Okay.
So it's fantastic.
Now, most people would say, I'd love to see my child become doctor, lawyer, engineer, you know,
Yeah.
all those kinds of things. But golly, it becomes apparent not too far into their, their schooling that this is not going to happen. So what happens if you have a child who is just not university material? They're just simply not, and not every kid is.
Right, of course. And that's a great question, because a lot of people think, what happens if my child doesn't go to school? That's the main question about the RESP. But first of all, the money in the RESP can be used for trade school, college, or university in Canada or anywhere in the world. So it doesn't have to be, I'm going to university to be a doctor. It can be, I'm going to be a forklift driver, or I'm going to be a plumber. And the money can be used for that. If the child does not go to school, their siblings can use the money in the RESP, or their cousins. And if they are an only child and they're not going to school and there's no one else that can use it, there's three things happening in that account. One is the contributions, and those contributions always belong to the person who set up the account, so the subscriber. So the contributions would go back to the subscriber.
Okay.
The grant would go back to the government, so the 20% would go back to the government, and then the growth that happened in that account can be transferred to the subscriber's RRSP tax-free. So you're never going to lose your money. If you put your money in the RESP for a child, even if they don't go to school, you're not losing that money. It's always there.
Okay, so let's say that you put in this 2,500, the government puts in, so it'd be 500?
Yep.
Yes, 20%. So then so many years go by, and that money is now worth a lot more than the 500 that the government put into it.
Yeah.
And the child says, you know what, not going to go to university. Not, you know, this is it. I'm happy being, you know, doing whatever they do.
Yeah.
So what that money has made then, that's yours.
Yes,
the government
that's right, the growth.
The government doesn't say, you made money on our money, so we want it back. They don't do that.
No.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
It's kind of magical. And really, studies show that the biggest predictor of a child going on to post-secondary is that their parents expect them to. And by setting up an RESP, you're setting that expectation.
Right.
So for any child, there's really no downside to setting up the RESP.
Yeah, really. And you're saying do it as soon as they're born.
Yes, definitely. They're born, you get the SIN, you apply while they're in the hospital for the SIN. They get it in 2 weeks these days. So then set up the RESP, and when people are gifting you money when your baby is born, that sort of thing, put it in the RESP. You're going to get the grant, and then you're going to get the growth.
And instead of yet one more toy that's going to break in no time, or one more cute little outfit, instead you say, thanks, Grandma, that money goes into the education fund.
That's right.
Yeah.
The thing is, I have never heard anyone say, I wish I didn't save that money for my child's education.
Yeah.
Nobody says that.
Yeah.
It's such a great thing. It's so powerful to say, here's this money. I believe in you.
Right.
Whatever you want to do, you can do it.
Right. How much does a university education cost now?
Yeah, it's a lot. So tuition, residence, and meal plan at Queen's, plus some spending money thrown in, you would want to budget $35,000
Wow, a year.
a year.
A year.
So
Yeah.
that first year is the most expensive because the residence and meal plan are very expensive. After first year, when they can get an apartment and share some costs and get groceries, it's less. I would say $25,000. But first year at a university where you're living away, I would budget $35,000. It's a lot of money.
Wow, it
Yeah.
sure is. How does it work with trade schools? Like, is this only for tuition and books, or no?
So if you were going to a trade school, you could use, so the subscriber, the person who set up the RESP, gets to say how much money comes out of the RESP. So if the child was going to trade school and they needed tuition, but they also needed work boots and they needed tools, that's part of their education costs. So the subscriber could just say they need $10,000. And then that money gets deposited into the child's account, and the child gets to spend it on what they want. So
That's really quite amazing.
it's quite flexible.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, how do they track that? For example, how do they know that this money is getting spent on those things.
They don't track that. All
they
they
don't.
track is that the child is registered at the institution. So they just assume that because the child is registered and attending the school, that they're using that money for school costs. So there's no follow-up, there's no hassle factor to it. The subscriber says how much the child needs. It should be within reason, but then it's at the child or the subscriber's decision-making to how it's spent, which is great because every kid has different costs, right?
Well, that's true. Yeah, but like I'm thinking some of the university costs, the lab work, and would be quite a bit more for some courses than for other courses.
That's right. And some kids need a really expensive computer where others need art supplies. Or if you're taking makeup at Sheridan, then you need a makeup kit. There's all kinds of different costs. So it's completely flexible. You're spending on what you need.
Wow, that is really quite something. What are there statistics on how much someone makes with a university education versus, let's say, high school? And then let's talk about less than high school. How does that work these days?
I mean, I don't know the exact stats on that, but there's definitely a correlation between a university education. The more education you have, generally, the more money you're making. But an education is very expensive, and more kids are getting educated. It's just more and more, but the education is expensive, and then they're graduating with huge student loans.
Yeah.
So whether they can get a good job and pay back their student loans is debatable too.
So let's say that a kid finishes high school, 18 years old, and says, yeah, I'm quite happy doing what I do. I like my part-time job. They said they'd offer me full-time. This is what I want to do.
Right.
But people change their minds a little bit later on.
Yeah.
Can they still access this, even though, or is it, well, you didn't want to do this when you were 18, now you're 25, and too bad.
No,
is that the way it works?
No, it's great. There's 35 years where
Really?
that child can use that RESP. So I would say if you had a child who was 18 who said, I want to take a year off, or I'm not sure what I want to do, just leave the money sitting there and wait. Because if they were 25 and they would come back and say, I'm now decided I want to do engineering, the money is sitting right there for them. So they can use that up to age 35. Or if you knew that they were going to do a master's, you could use the RESP for that as well.
And sometimes they get degrees in two different things.
Yes.
I know a couple of people who started out being engineers,
Right?
and one became a lawyer.
Oh,
Yeah, but what a great, when you think about it,
skill set.
it's great, because
Yeah.
think of all the different cases and so on, and the type of law he could practice because he's got that. And he
background.
actually married somebody who also has the same, she was an engineer and became a lawyer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. So you could be in school a long time.
Yes, you could.
And that money.
And you could use the RESP for that.
And the other thing I'm thinking, if you did decide to delay your education for a little while, travel or do
Yeah.
whatever you want, you take that little bit of time off, isn't there a rule of thumb about your investment money, it doubles every 10 years? Is it something like that?
Yes, we used to say 10 years. I don't know if that's entirely true right now, but
Right, yeah.
but yes, your money would continue to grow and your investment would continue to grow in there. So if your child wanted to take a few years off, there's so much flexibility around that.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
And then the siblings could use the money too. I mean, there's a lot of options available.
And the siblings or cousins, all kinds of things. And just thinking, if you're a grandma and maybe you're not so comfortable with how your kids spend their money,
Yeah.
what a great way for you to be able to help them out without, without interfering in their lives too much.
Yeah.
This would be a way of doing that.
You could have a grandmother could set up an RESP for a child and contribute at birthdays and Christmas, or they could contribute once a year. And then when the child goes to school, there's the money and it's sitting there and they've received the grant and it's grown. It's a fantastic way to contribute to a child's education.
Now, what happens if you don't set it up
Yeah.
You say, you know what, we'll never have enough money for this. We live so close to the bone. There is not any extra money, so they don't bother setting it up, or they don't know about it, something like that. Then they inherit some money.
Yeah.
So what can they do? Because they haven't set it up before, and say their child is now 10 years old. How does that work?
Right. So there's two issues there, and I want to address the first one where people think we don't have any money, we can't set this up. Set it up anyway. There's so many extra grants for low-income families. Just open it up when you have your baby, and you'll get those grants even if you don't contribute 1 penny. So if you're from a low-income family, just set up the RESP anyway.
Okay.
That's step number 1. Step number 2, though, you get an inheritance, and that's a great idea. So you would max out, your child's 10, you would max out this year that they're 10, $2,500. The government would give their $500, but you are also allowed to catch up for 1 year at a time. So you could contribute an additional $2,500 for the year that she was 9 and get the $500 from the government. So now you've got $6,000 in that RESP. $5,000 you contributed, $1,000 from the government. Then in January, it's a new calendar year. You could contribute $2,500 for the year she's 11 and another $2,500 for the year she's 8. So you'd get another $1,000 from the government. So even if your child is 12, you could still set up the RESP and start contributing. There's no downside to that. Now you have to stop contributing in the calendar year that they are 17. So there is that time frame, but the best advice is start as soon as possible.
Wow, that is, and that would give you enough to pay for an education.
Well, if you maxed it out, you're definitely on a depending how it's invested, you're definitely en route to pay for a significant portion of their education.
That's amazing. I actually I didn't know anything about this, so this has
great.
been just so interesting for me, and I hope people out there, get this, especially the grandmas and so on, and saying, I've wanted to do something, and I've got a little extra money, and this could really help out my grandchildren or great-grandchildren with their education. This is wonderful.
There's really no downside to it. The only thing I would stress is that you set it up with a bank or a credit union or someone reputable, and you read the fine print, because there are a few companies out there that charge extra fees. Yeah.
My brain just went a different direction there, because I'm thinking of all the people I'm going to phone and say, did you know about this?
I know. I don't feel like it's well known enough. It's been around for a long time, 30 years.
Really?
Yeah, but it's not well known enough, and it's free money for every kid. So every kid should have an RESP. I don't know how we get the word out. Maybe this is the right way.
Maybe this is the right way.
Yeah.
And, but the term free money gets my attention every time. Free money.
Should get everyone's attention.
I hope so.
Yeah.
This has been so interesting. Thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, thanks for having me.